This edition of MacVoices is brought to you by Take Control Books, the answers you need now from leading experts. Learn more and download yours at takecontrolbooks.com. Welcome back to Mac Notables on MacVoices. This is the Talk of the Mac community. I'm Chuck Joyner. Tonight, folks, we have a special appearance by Ted Landau's shirt.
Yes, here it is,
Yes.
in all its glory.
In all its glory. Ted Landau's Macworld Conference and Expo shirt. Ted, it's great to see you and your shirt.
Yes, well, I guess I can move this up now.
That's probably a good idea.
It's one of many apparel items that I've gotten from Macworld Expo over the years, and some of which have been worn out and tossed away by now, and some of which I still use, and this is one of them.
Yeah, it's funny. That has always been one of my rituals, that at least one day during the show I'd stop by, pick up a T-shirt or a polo shirt or something, just for no real good reason other than to have it in my collection. So I've got those hiding somewhere as well.
Yeah, I got a couple from the last couple of years, which I'm now glad.
Yeah. And of course, folks, what we're talking about, or what we're about to talk about, is the fact that Macworld iWorld 2015 has officially been placed on hiatus. That's the official position. Of course, there's a lot of speculation as to whether that means it's probably the end completely. You know, we won't know that for sure until it comes off of hiatus, if it ever does.
First of all, hiatus is a terrible word. It sounds like some medical condition or some part of your body. You know, I'm going to have to inspect your hiatus, see if there's any problem here. And second of all, nobody really thinks it's a hiatus. I mean, there's maybe a 1 in 1,000 chance that it could come back as something else, which will be even more reduced and diminished than it already was from its original form. But I suspect that what we're going to see is it'll never come back. So that's much more likely.
Yeah, and of course this comes on the heels. In fact, one of the, if not the last time we talked, the time before that, that Macworld magazine has shut down their print edition. They greatly reduced their staff, said that now they are a website, but a greatly reduced website. It just seems that that's sort of the nature, I guess, of this kind of coverage, at least with this one company, IDG.
Yeah, it is. It is a case of unusual timing. Maybe not so unusual. Maybe IDG had this as their big plan for the last whatever months, but certainly unusual timing from our perspective. And it's obviously sad for those of us who are invested in going to Macworld and reading the print magazine, as we talked about before. And it's also just interesting. You know, Apple has, in some sense, never been more successful, despite all the predictions of Apple is doomed. That never seem to go away. It's probably the largest company on Earth right now. It has all sorts of consumer satisfaction survey winners and most recognized brand winners. Its stock is near its all-time record high. iPhone 6 is a big success. Their media event draws hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of people to listen to it. I think I just read that the iPhone 6 is already pre-ordered 20 million iPhones in China, something like that. The Apple stores are successful as can be. What else can I say? And yet, in the midst of all this, Macworld's two most significant incarnations, the magazine and the expo, which at one time were the premier things of their genre. Macworld magazine, the number one most authoritative and respected and popular magazine in the Apple universe, and Macworld Expo clearly the largest Mac gathering of the year. And now they're both gone. And I think, more than anything else, I think the simplest thing to say about it is the internet wins. That both those things are gone because people don't read print magazines as much anymore, especially for computers. If you're not, of all the print magazines you're not going to read because you're going to be on a computer instead, it would seem that a magazine about a computer would be a prime candidate, and that's what happened. And similarly, lots of trade shows have gone away over the years. In some sense, it's been amazing that Macworld has lasted as long as it has, and the idea of spending a bundle of money to cart yourself on an airplane and pay hotel bills and stuff to go to an expo, when most of what you will learn there you can get instantly and easily online, is again the reason it's gone. From our perspective, I know that despite that, the main thing that I'll miss will be the social aspect of it, and it was the opportunity to see not only all the friends and colleagues that I have that would show up in the speakers lounge and that I get to see innumerable times over 4 or 5 days and reacquaint myself with, but get to see the people that I didn't know, that I only have known through email or Twitter now, and that come up and say, I've read your articles and talk to me about that, and that's all gone.
There are a couple different things we need to examine here. First of all, frankly, I was going to blame this whole thing on you because you retired from speaking at Macworld last year, and they closed the doors right behind you. I mean, but that's probably not fair.
It's like I knew it was coming.
Yeah.
I didn't, but it's a case of coincidental good timing. Yeah, I decided to retire, and that's why I tweeted today. So it's a good thing I didn't plan my retirement for this year, because I would have missed my chance to do it. Macworld got to retire before I did if I planned it for this year. So.
Well, it would have been nice to be able to blame it on you, but I can't. It seemed oddly coincidental that you decided to step down, and then I guess they just figured there were no other speakers worth the time.
I don't think that was it, but we'll go with that.
Okay. All right. Ted, I guess there are a couple ways to look at this. IDG, Macworld, iWorld, I mean, it's a business. No matter how much we feel it's a little bit different and it's almost something sacred, it's a business. So it had to make business sense, financial sense. I still have a hard time believing they couldn't do it. But at the same time, you look at all the people, you look at Moscone, you look at everything that goes on to put on an expo and a conference, the way that they were doing it, it's a big chunk of change, and that has to be covered or they're not going to do it anymore.
Yeah, absolutely, and I'm sure that's what played into it. I mean, I was alluding to that a little bit before when I was mentioning how popular Apple is these days, and you would think maybe that popularity might trade off into the popularity of something like the expo itself. Apparently not, and it's also weird when I I live here in the Bay Area, and I read about the conventions that are coming up in San Francisco. And I think recently there was Oracle World, and then there's Dreamforce, that Salesforce company that was having a convention here. And there was articles in the Chronicle about how huge these were. They closed several streets because there's so many people that are attending these events. And so clearly, for some technology-related things, there's still a great deal of power to get people to come and attend something that on the surface you might think should be less popular, because no matter how popular Oracle and Salesforce are, I have to believe that less people take advantage of those things than use a Mac or an iPhone. So if 1/10 of the people that owned Apple products showed up at this event, it would be immense, probably too big. So clearly, partly what's happening is there is, for whatever reason, among the Apple community, among the consumer probably level, because Oracle and Salesforce are not consumer products. At the consumer level, that something like Macworld isn't as appealing as it used to be years ago.
And of course, like you said earlier, the internet wins. I mean, the Macworld used to be a place where you could go to, and it was the only place you could go to get certain kinds of training. And now we have all sorts of training all over the web. We have all sorts of information, product reviews, in-depth analysis. So I don't know that it was time to go, but it's just too bad. It's just too bad. The social aspect, though, I mean, my Twitter stream almost let out a collective scream this afternoon. There were so many people from all over the world so sorry to see this go. Because we won't have the opportunity, or at least a definite fixed time and place to get together, and that to me is the bigger loss here.
No, absolutely. And certainly the biggest loss for me. I mean, when going to Macworld Expo, it was great to speak there. I enjoyed that, which is why I kept doing it for so long. And it was great to walk the floor and see all the new products, and sometimes attend other people's sessions and see what they were up to and all that stuff. But really, the number one thing that I looked forward to when an expo was coming up was sitting in the speakers lounge and having a lunch with people that I hadn't seen for the previous 12 months or sometimes 6 months, depending upon how the schedule was going, and catching up with them and walking the floor with them and going to parties in the evening with them and just generally talking to them and socializing. I mean, these are I have a virtual community, as you do, of people that I communicate with largely through Twitter these days, a little bit Facebook, a little bit email, but you never see them face to face. So this was the once a year, twice a year opportunity to do that.
Yeah, Ted, it's really it's an interesting social dynamic where you see people once a year, but you become good friends with them. You get very close with them, sometimes closer than the people you see every day at the office or your neighbors or whatever. And I don't know if that's true at all conferences and at all occupations. I don't think so. There seemed to be something special about, and is something special. I shouldn't talk about it in the past. There's something special about the Mac community and the Apple community and the hardcore people who live and breathe this stuff that occurs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. I think that I don't know where we are in the edit process, but I think that's what more or less what I was just saying. So you're echoing that back to me, and yeah, I totally agree. Yeah,
yeah. Dave Hamilton had an interesting article today on the Mac Observer, and I mean there are articles all over the web about this, the Mac web. But he pointed out that this is obviously there's a loss, but there's some opportunity here, and I'm hoping that somebody will step in and fill it or come up with something that it can't be Macworld as we knew it. That obviously, because otherwise it wouldn't have gone away. But hopefully there'll be something that at some central place and time we can all have a reason to go to wherever that place is and get together and rekindle some of that fire that happens when we all do connect.
Yeah, I hope that happens. I'm pessimistic, to be honest with you. I certainly can't imagine. There's too much money that needs to be spent for it to be anything like Macworld. I mean, like there's that alt conference that exists outside of WWDC now for the people that want to go but can't get tickets or can't afford to even try to pay for tickets. And it seems reasonably successful. You've gone to it. I haven't seen it very much, but the little bit I checked it out seems successful. But, I still believe that if WWDC went away, Alt Conference would probably go away too. It doesn't seem to have enough to sustain itself. Maybe I'm wrong, but and it's certainly not nearly. It doesn't. It has very little physical space and very little going on when there aren't the few sessions that are going on. And I can't see people coming from all over the country to attend something like that if that's all there was. In any great numbers anyway, consumers. Remember, these are developers, and so developers are more motivated. If you translate that to a consumer level, I guess is what I'm thinking as well, that it will be even less. What is the reason that people are going to come? There has to and spend several days and hotel bills and plane bills and so on. And it has to be pretty substantial, I think. And I think it'll be hard to come up with something substantial unless you have a lot of money. And if you have a lot of money and are willing to spend it, well, that's a problem too, because that's why Macworld folded, because it was spending a lot of money and didn't seem it was worth it.
Yeah. I guess we're all going to be analyzing this for a long time. I know I got a number of emails this afternoon from folks as we record this afternoon who expressed the other side of this, and that's anger, but nobody's quite sure about who to be angry with. And I know I have my favorite whipping boys in this party. I'm curious to see if you have any.
No.
No?
No, I don't see who to be particularly angry with over this. I mean, you can always be angry at somebody, I suppose, and blame somebody, but I mean, to what end? I don't know. I mean, you're going to blame the executives at IDG for shutting it down? I can't get angry at them for doing that. I assume that they made a business decision. That's their prerogative. They're not operating a nonprofit charity. It's not an NGO or something. So if they're not happy with the money that it's making, then they're going to shut it down. They're under no obligation to do otherwise. I can't get angry about it.
No, I agree 100%. I guess some of my anger, and I'm not going to call names, you know who you are, But you know, no, not you.
Yep.
But there have been some journalists out there, some media people who have I've seen it time and again from way back, where they walk the show and for a day or less than a day, then they go back to their studios or their wherever they live, and pontificate that, well, there was really nothing there to see, there was nothing really interesting. And meanwhile, I spend 3 and 4 days trying to get to everybody that I think is cool and interesting, and still don't make it. And if there's anger, it's at those people.
Well, I could get annoyed with those people too. I don't think they're responsible for the end of Macworld. I wouldn't give them that much power. But yeah, we've commented on this in previous years' expos. Every year since Apple pulled out of the expo, there have been people who are saying it's not worth going to anymore. And I can't even be totally angry at that, because I think it's a matter of perspective. If what you want and if what you expected was the way the expo was before Apple pulled out, then I think the current expo was disappointing, because it wasn't that. And you could easily come up with all sorts of ways that you were disappointed because it wasn't that. But if you had an open mind and clean slate, so to speak, and said, okay, I don't have to have it be the way it was before Apple pulled out of the expo for it to be considered a success. I'm going to just judge this on its own merits and forget the past. Then there was a lot to recommend Macworld Expo. Like you said, even though the floor didn't have the big name vendors anymore, it had a lot of small vendors that were interesting. And I too, it took me 2 or 3 days before I got to see everything that I wanted to see. And the sessions, which I don't know whether these journalists even bothered to go to that you're referring to, but the sessions had not changed at all, really. The sessions were just as good, if not better. Disclaimer, I'm one of the people that spoke there. But the sessions were just as good, if not better, as they ever were. And if you were coming to attend the sessions, it was every bit as good a reason to go. And there were more external things going on than there had been in the past. More things going on in the lobbies, and more things going on after hours with the rapid fire event and photography events and music events. And so, yeah, it was a great 4 days. 3 days, I think, the most recent incarnation.
Yeah, and I guess that you're right. I mean, not any one person has the power to kill this. It just would have been nice to see a lot more support, because now, of course, some of those same people out there bemoaning the loss, and it's a blow for the Apple community and all this. And it's like, well, where were you? Why weren't you taking a more objective view? If you claim journalistic integrity, fine, then do your job, get out there, report on it, and don't spend 2 hours and say there's nothing going on when the show went 2 or 3 days. And like you say, they maybe never even went to the conferences. Mm-hmm. So the one thing, I don't know about you, Ted, but I don't want to wrap this up without both saying congratulations and thank you to Paul Kent, Kathy Moran, the entire Macworld staff. They did a great job for as long as they were there, and probably before that, to make these things really special events. If the finances didn't work, that's regrettable. But the events themselves, from an attendee standpoint, were just amazing.
I can't agree more. Whatever the expression is, that means I'm in total agreement with you. Yeah, my history of Macworld goes back to before Paul was involved in it, and it wasn't as much fun, that's for sure. Paul, Honor is well run, for that matter. Paul did an absolutely fabulous job, as did Kathy, and I have the highest praise for them. They always made me feel welcome. It was clear that they were invested in making the expo as wonderful and as worthwhile an experience as it could be. They were open to suggestions and useful feedback. They were super hardworking, and you saw it mostly those days that I was at the expo, but you got to know that they were working hard behind the scenes throughout the rest of the year just to make those 4 days happen. And what can I say? They're fabulous, and they deserve every bit of praise that they can get.
Yeah. Thank you, guys. Thank you. Hope we'll cross paths again somewhere, somehow, at some event. No question about it. This edition of MacVoices is sponsored by Take Control Books at takecontrolbooks.com. The answers you need now from leading experts. iOS 8 is out, and that means that the next iteration of macOS 10, Yosemite, won't be far behind. Are you ready? Joe Kissel can get you there quick with his newest book, Take Control of Upgrading to Yosemite. Not only will Joe get you ready with his pre-release book, but you will also get a free upgrade once Yosemite is out to make sure you're taking full advantage of all the new features. And if you're concerned with the security of the data on your Mac, then you need File Vault, one of the best security features in macOS. In Take Control of File Vault, Joe Kissel explains how it works, why the latest version is light years better than the original, what features are available only from the command line, and much more. Finally, while you're on the site, check out the very first book from the new Crash Course series from Take Control Books, Read Me First, a Take Control Crash Course. Tanya Angst has written the book we all wish was available when we first started, and she's made it free so you can share it with friends and family who aren't as tech-savvy as you. Be sure to take advantage of the new social media sharing features and to appreciate the new layout of the Crash Course series. There will be many more. Go to Take Control Books right now and get these and many more great titles from authorities like Jeff Carlson, Michael E. Cohen, Glenn Fleischman, Kirk McElhearn, and many more. Take Control Books, the answers you need now from leading experts. Thanks to Take Control Books for their ongoing support of MacVoices. Okay, so that's the down part. Let's try to get to the up part. Again, as we record this, we have an Apple event closing in on us on Thursday, and there's lots of speculation as to what it is. You have any speculation, Ted? And you better, because otherwise it's going to be a short show.
Oh, I got to go someplace. No. Sure. And actually, it's a little bit of close timing. Probably by the time you post this, it could be that the event will have already happened. And so whatever we wind up predicting, we can already look like idiots before it's even posted, because we'll be wrong going out of the gate. So I hesitate to do that. But let's talk a little bit. Yes, I think number one, it's virtually certain that Yosemite is going to be announced as a released product. I mean, it'll probably get released no later than the week after the event, maybe even sooner than that, maybe even the day of the event. And with that, there will probably be an update to iOS 8.1, and what we will see will be all these convergence features, the handoff and the iCloud Drive, and all these recommendations that were on the web that don't upgrade, don't accept turning on iCloud Drive on your iOS device yet because you need Yosemite. It doesn't work with Mavericks. Well, now Yosemite is going to be out and it'll work. And so all that it will complete this really huge software upgrade for Apple this year, and the Apple Pay will likely come out. I think Apple promised it would be out in October, so Apple Pay will be activated as well, and that will pretty much complete all the software that Apple has been touting. There might even be some stuff about HomeKit that might get announced in that regard as well. So that's the big software news. I don't think they will spend too much time on it because it's already all been announced. They unveiled Yosemite back at WWDC. They'll talk about it a little more, I'm sure, on Thursday, but they may not spend too much time on it. And iOS 8, of course, came out last month, so be it. So that leaves what hardware they're going to announce, and the the invitations, the catchphrase was, "It's been way too long." And I actually wrote an article on that subject a few weeks ago. We may have talked about titled something like "Breaks Over," and I commented that Apple's product line outside of iOS devices, Apple's Mac product line in particular, has languished in recent years. The new Mac Pro that came out last year, which has a very limited audience, is just about the only new Apple product that's come out in the last 2 years that isn't anything other than a minor speed bump. The MacBook Air is still pretty much the way it was. MacBook Pro with Retina display, pretty much the way it was. The Mac Mini hasn't even been speed bumped, as far as I know, in 2 years. Apple TV, which is technically an iOS device, has pretty much languished for 2 years. The iMac has not had anything other than a speed bump for the longest time, at least 2 years. And so I was saying, it's time for Apple to do some significant work on these products. And of course, October is also the time of the year, the past couple of years anyway, that iPad upgrades are announced. So bearing all that in mind, what do I think is going to happen? I think it's almost certain that we will see a new iPad. There is some debate as to whether we'll see both a new iPad Air and an iPad Mini or just a new iPad Air. I honestly don't know, but I'm leaning towards just the iPad Air, and which is an interesting topic in its own right, which we could go off on after I'm done pontificating here, which is someone's calling about it right now. Yeah. So there's some speculation that the iPad Mini is going to suffer because of the iPhone 6 Plus, and that it's amazing how fast technology zooms along. A year or two ago, the iPad Mini was the darling of the Apple universe. Everybody who had an iPad would say, "Oh, now I like the Mini even better than the large iPad, and this is just the perfect size," and blah blah blah. And now people are saying, "Oh, gee, this iPhone 6 Plus, I can use it instead of my iPad Mini," tossing that in the garbage. There's a sense in which I think some people are speculating that Apple might be waiting to see what to do with the iPad Mini till the dust settles on the iPhone 6 Plus, and they may position it in a different way. There's also speculation that the iPad. One of the things is that the new iPad will have a look similar to the iPhone 6 look, so that it will come in white, silver, and gold, with a similar casing design and so on. If they do that, I think, why not do it for the iPad Mini as well? And why leave the iPad Mini as the odd man out? I don't know. So maybe that will happen, but we're certainly going to see something along those lines. I'd be very surprised if we don't. Beyond that, I think the surest bet is that there's going to be a new iMac, and all signs point to an iMac with a Retina display. And I have no inside information, but based on seeing multiple lines of evidence on the web that this is happening, I'm fairly confident that's going to happen. That then leads, those are the surest things. Then we get to some more distant speculation. Is there going to be a new Mac Mini, and might there be a Retina Cinema display, so to speak, whatever they're going to call a Thunderbolt Retina display, that will connect both to the new Mac Mini and the Mac Pro, or maybe even just the Mac Pro. I've read some speculation that said that's not likely, that it's a lot harder to make a 4K display that works over Thunderbolt, that on the iMac it'll be hardwired directly connected internally, and so it won't have to go through a Thunderbolt port. And so it's possible that we might actually see a 4K iMac without a separate Cinema Thunderbolt display. Retina, I can't even get all those words out at once, but without a Retina Thunderbolt display at the same time. I think that the separate display will come eventually. It just might not be coming in October. It might come next year or something like that. Beyond that, there's talk of a new MacBook Air. I don't think we're going to see that. I think that's coming. I think there's a lot of jockeying going on right now. I've also read reports that the larger iPad, the 12-inch iPad that I originally wrote about and tentatively titled the iPad Pro, that then seemed to disappear from the landscape, seems to have resurfaced again, and people are arguing that that's going to come in early 2015. And if that happens, I think between the iPad Mini and the iPhone 6 Plus and the MacBook Air and a larger iPad. There's a lot of very close and overlapping screen sizes that need to be sorted out in terms of do I want a super large iPad Air? Do I want a very small MacBook Air instead, which will have about the same screen size? What's going to happen there? I'm sure Apple, if Apple has all these products in the works, Apple is thinking about how to market all these things to their best advantage, so they don't cannibalize each other any more than they have to. And it'll be interesting to see how it all plays out. I've even read some speculation that says there might be some sort of iPad that has a version of OS X as well as on iOS. I seriously doubt that. I'll be very surprised if that happens, but that's another line of speculation. So, and then of course, I still hope that there's a new Apple TV on the horizon. I want another Apple TV for my house, and I keep hesitating to buy it because I don't want to buy it and have a new upgraded model come out the next day. So I keep saying, "Come on, let's do it, Ray, so I can get one." But that may be something. I mean, that would be a nice thing to have on the lineup going into the holiday season, because it's a perfect Christmas type gift at $99. But I haven't seen a lot of rumors about it on the web, so I don't know. So basically, new iPads, new iMac are the surest things. Everything else is questionable.
Sometimes some of the fringier rumors, if that's a word, I just created a word.
Okay.
It seems like those kind of things always happen around this time, and around the time of leading up to an Apple event. They predict something that can make your bed and pour your coffee, and
I have that. Yes.
Yeah, and so I don't even. And the bad thing is, you don't know which one of these is it. But I did want to touch on your comment about the screens and cannibalizing each other. Are we at a time, because of, I guess, just the way things have developed, that Apple feels the need to cover all screen sizes and all levels of power? I mean, the Mac Pro seems to be a pretty big jump from an iMac up to a Mac Pro, but when you go down into the MacBooks and the MacBook Pros and the MacBook Airs, you go into the iPads, iPhone, two iPhone 6 sizes, and a 5S size that's even smaller, that of course was not smaller a couple months ago. I mean, if you just look at it, it seems like Apple's trying to build something for just about any size you want. And if they put the new larger iPad into production, then that fits into yet another niche. Do we really need all these things, or are they just having to do this because of the way people have developed it? If it's half an inch too big or an inch too big, I'm going to go up or down to get what I want.
Well, it hasn't been Apple's style to throw something at the wall and see if it sticks. That's more what Samsung does, to be honest about it. So I don't think they're just going to say, well, let's make something available in every size, and we'll wait and see which one people buy. I don't think that's what's going to happen. I think if Apple comes out with a certain size, it's because they've given it some thought and they're going to put a push behind it, and they think that there's a market for it. The closest they've come to just, well, I wouldn't even say that. The iPhone 6 Plus clearly is something that they hadn't planned on doing a couple of years ago, and pretty much scoffed at the idea of doing a couple of years ago. But the market spoke, and so they aren't coming out with it to see if something that size will be popular. They knew something that size would be popular because it already was popular among Android devices. And so here was a case where they didn't lead. They weren't the first to come out with this size, but there clearly was pressure. Why throw money away or leave money on the table, or whatever the expression is? I mean, clearly there are people that want to buy something that large, and if they don't have a lot of brand allegiance, and they want a smartphone that large, and they look, and the only choice they have is Android, they'll get an Android. By coming out with the iPhone 6 Plus, that gives them a chance to capture that audience back to the iPhone. And I think it was a very smart decision from a business point of view. for the other things, that's why I'm saying it is a bit of confusion. I think Apple will have it thought out before they do it. They're just not going to release 6 products that all have approximately the same size screen and say you pick which one you want. There will be some strategy behind it more than that. At least that was certainly what Apple's history would suggest. I haven't given it a lot of thought in terms of what I think that strategy will be. It's something we can talk about another day. That's probably Apple calling to explain it to me right now.
I hope so.
Yeah. So I don't know what the strategy is, and it'll be interesting to see. I think, I think that the question is, where are people going to land? I mean, for example, we're talking about the new iMac. And I've read things online. I've had this thought myself to say, well, how popular is a new iMac going to be? People aren't using desktop computers as much anymore. Laptops make up 75 to 80% of Apple's Mac sales these days. If you really want a large screen, then you can have a Thunderbolt display that you attach to your MacBook. And is there really a big market for a dedicated screen iMac desktop machine? And similarly, the popular sizes of iOS devices seem to be getting smaller and smaller. The iPad, or at least or bigger and bigger, depending on where you're starting from. I mean, the iPad Mini had become more popular than the iPad. The iPhone 6 is bigger than the iPhone 5, and the 6 Plus even more so. And the 6 Plus has been surprisingly, I think, successful. So it's just about, I think, more popular than the 6 itself. It's very close, and there seems to be some convergence on 6-7 inches as a preferred size for these devices. Where does that leave an iPad Pro at 12 inches? Or where does that leave a MacBook at 12 inches, possibly? And I don't know. I think people are, like I said, people are going to choose what's their preferred device and their preferred size. And Apple, I think, is going to try and anticipate that and guide that choice as best they can, rather than just wait and see, like I said. But ultimately, the market's going to speak on this.
Before we leave this, I'm curious, if you had to pick one device, one update, one device, whatever, that Apple really needed right at this point in time to go into the Christmas season of 2014, what would it be? What do you see as the most critical thing that we need, not expect to get, but really need?
Well, that's tough to say. I'd have to go with 2 things. I'm not even sure yet what the second one is. The first one, I think, is the iMac. The problem with saying that it's an iMac is the iMac's expensive. You're talking about $1,000, $2,000, upwards to over $2,000, depending upon which model you get. So it's clearly not It's clearly not going to be something that you're going to get for a stocking stuffer. It's an expensive gift. So, but I think for anybody that wants a desktop Mac, getting a getting a Retina display iMac is what you've been waiting for, and I think it will be a hot item within the parameters of how many iMacs they're potentially going to sell at those prices. For something that's less expensive, the big item, I think, going in probably is what we've already seen, which is the iPhone. I mean, I don't think anything we're going to see tomorrow is going to surpass the iPhone in popularity. It was a major new device with these new sizes, and I think they're going to continue to sell throughout the holiday season. So, if they come out with a new Apple TV, like I said, that could be a hot small item as well. But I think it's going to be iMac and iPhone are going to be the big things that we're going to see.
We will know on Thursday, and then we'll find out just how right or wrong we are. So to wrap up, I wanted to just touch on, because it's interesting that you would pick the iPhone, because that is a perfect segue into the next thing. And that is some of your responses on the Mac Observer this week to Dave Hamilton and Bob Levitas' choices of iPhone sizes. I'm curious to just hear a little bit of backstory on that and what your thinking is.
Yeah, actually, first let me say, I used to write for Mac Observer. I stopped doing that a year or so ago. I still admire the site. I have good relationships with the people that work there, and I regularly read it. In fact, I recently made it my home page again, so I'm checking on there, and also, of course, it comes up on my Twitter feed. Anyway, so both Bob and Dave Hamilton recently had articles about why they chose the iPhone 6 Plus over the 6. And as you know, I chose a 6, and so I felt a little bit compelled to respond. I don't know why. What do I don't really care why if somebody wants to get a 6 Plus and says a 6, it doesn't. I think some people get very attached to these choices, and it's like if you pick a 6 Plus and then it diminishes my choice of the 6. Somehow I have to convince you that you were wrong, or maybe my choice was wrong. I don't really feel I have that, but maybe I do a little bit because. I just like to get into the discussion, I think. Anyway, Bob was an easier one. Bob basically said he liked that it had a better battery life and a better camera, and that's why he chose it. And the size didn't really matter to him. That he didn't use it as a phone much anyway, which I think gets to the general point. When he uses a phone, he has a Bluetooth device that he sticks in his ear, so he doesn't have to stick that big thing up against his ear anyway, and the portability wasn't an issue, so size really didn't matter. Now, those things didn't matter a lot to me, as it turns out. First of all, I have no trouble with battery life. My iPhone lasts a day or more the way I use it. On my iPhone 5, I didn't have to recharge more than once a day. So I certainly, the better battery life is nice, but it isn't going to be a reason I'm going to prefer a 6 over a 6 Plus, that's for sure. Or 6 Plus over a 6. And the better camera, yeah, I would like that optical stabilization, but I still don't think I will need it very often. I didn't have it in the iPhone 5, and the iPhone 5 did just fine. The iPhone 6 camera is even better, and I'm certainly not going to get that big iPhone just to get that one feature. So that was that. For Dave's article, Dave made the argument that the 6 Plus was the perfect digital device, and I have to agree with him in the parameters of his argument. He was saying, as a couple of other people, Dan Frakes, in a conversation I had with him, conveyed pretty much the same idea. They both said, they frequently carried their iPad Mini around with them, in addition to their iPhone. Because there were things that they wanted to do that the iPhone was just too small for. And now they felt that they could essentially leave the iPad Mini at home and just go with the iPhone 6 Plus. And so it was a win, because yes, the iPhone 6 Plus is bigger than the 6, but it's smaller than the Mini, and they only have one device that they have to carry around. And if that really is the way it works out for you, then I say, yeah, the 6 Plus is probably a great choice. It isn't the way it works out for me, was the point that I made. I said, first of all, I don't even use an iPad Mini. I use an iPad Air because I like the larger size. And there's no way that an iPhone 6 Plus is going to be a substitute for an iPad Air for me. It's just not nearly big enough. And second of all, I don't carry my iPad Air around with me. It stays home almost all the time, unless I'm going someplace where I know I'm going to make use of it. It isn't something that I just casually carry around with me the way I do my iPhone. And I don't even work, it's not even a contest at home. I think Dave wrote that he found that he was using his iPhone 6 Plus at home rather than picking up his iPad Mini. And for me, again, that's not an issue. I don't use the iPhone at home. I never have, and I probably never will. The iPhone, as soon as I get home, the iPhone either stays in my pocket or sits on my desk. And for any iOS type mobile thing that I want to do, I'm using the iPad because it's bigger and I like it better, and it's convenient to use at home. So basically, for me, an iPhone is a device that I use when I'm out of the house for casual tasks that a small device is appropriate for, and that I don't really want something that much bigger to require two hands to use when one hand might suffice, and feels awkward in my pocket and needs some alternate way to store and so on. So I guess what I would say that I can understand why some people. I think it's a real divergence. I think whether you want the iPhone 6 or the iPhone 6 Plus is going to depend upon how you use your iPhone and your iPad now. And if you are more like me, you're going to want the iPhone 6. If you're more like Dave Hamilton, you're going to want the 6 Plus. And they're both fine.
I think your point is perfect. I don't know what size shoe you wear, but I doubt it's the same one that I wear. And it's right for you, and mine's right for me, and that's fine. And that should be the way it is with these devices. I don't think there is a better size. I think it can be just a touch frustrating that you know that by the specs and by the features that the camera on the Plus is a little better in certain circumstances than on the 6. So naturally, that's a differentiator, and that's the way that you have to market things. But if they were truly equal, then we might get into what's the best size, but it still comes down to what's best for you.
Yeah, and to be clear, I mean, I like the larger screen size on the iPhone 6 Plus. It's just a question of trade-off. I think when I was talking to Dan about it, and this question of of the larger size screen, so the screen is larger, and I said, yeah, but at some point, you have to draw a line. It's just a question of where you draw a line. You're not going to have a 27-inch iPhone. At some point, you're going to say, that's too big. And even though you might like a 27-inch screen because it's so much larger, there are trade-offs to having a 27-inch screen that's going to make it not practical for you to carry around. And so at what point does the iPhone screen reach that point where you say it's too big? And it's different for different people.
Yeah. It was an interesting discussion to watch you go back and forth with the guys, and and have make some great points. But we've talked about this before. I think the last time, I went with this. Yeah, there we go.
I got the black one now. I see.
Yes, I got the black one. Yes, I couldn't handle the white one, but I got the 6 Plus, and so far, I really like it. Yes, it's definitely bigger. It is definitely a little more difficult to do things with one hand, but I find the bigger screen and the camera definitely is amazing. The battery life is a nice touch because now I don't, by the end of the evening, I'm not down into the red zone most of the time, unless it's been a really busy day. So so far this has been the right choice for me.
There you go.
There you go.
Why? I know why I didn't want a white one, but you never did say what was your objection to the white.
It's a good question. I was surprised, but I found, there we go, try to do it that way. I found the white outline to be distracting. I felt like I could never get the brightness on the phone up to the point that I sort of wanted or had become accustomed to with my old 5S, which was a black face. This, now that I've got the black face here, it's absolutely gorgeous, and I love it. And I don't think there was anything wrong with the other phone. I think it was purely an optical illusion. But it just, or what I'd become used to. And in the 2-week period, I ran it up to the end to try to get used to it, try to tell myself it didn't matter. But it did. And so I traded it, and now I'm a very happy iPhone 6 space gray owner.
Cool.
Yeah. So I guess we'll see you on the other side of the Thursday announcements, and we'll see how good we did. And
we can have our post-game analysis in which we can laugh how wrong we were in our predictions. Or at least how wrong I was.
Yeah. And now I'm going to give you homework, though, Ted.
Yeah.
With Macworld, iWorld shutting down, now you've got to find some reasons, some events or conferences or something to draw me to the Bay Area so we can have dinner.
Well, the Blue Angels were here this weekend.
Well, that doesn't help much now.
They'll be back next year. They come every year. So
okay. Well, I'll mark it down.
Okay.
Blue Angels and dinner with Ted.
Yeah, there you go.
Not necessarily in that order.
Okay.
Great to see you, Ted. Thanks so much.
Okay. I thank you.
Folks, I'm Chuck Joyner. This is Mac Notables on MacVoices. We will be back again soon. But before we go, please, we often ask you to leave comments in our comments section on the MacVoices website. We'd really like to know what you have to say about Macworld, iWorld shutting down. Also, share any memories or any important points, what the event meant to you. I think that's going to be an important part of everybody moving forward, looking backwards so we can look forward. Until the next time, and as always, thanks for watching. Visit MacVoices.com for links, show notes, to subscribe, to connect with Chuck on Twitter, Google+, Facebook, and LinkedIn. Subscribe to our weekly newsletter, the MacVoices Dispatch, to stay up to date on all the latest MacVoices news from our front page or at MacVoices.com/newsletter. Advertising and sponsorships handled by Backbeat Media at BackbeatMedia.com. Bandwidth provided by CashFly at CashFly.com.